The Dardanians are an ancient tribe that lived in the central and eastern parts of the Balkans, particularly in what is now modern-day Kosovo, Albania, and parts of North Macedonia. Their origins, like many ancient tribes, are shrouded in mystery, but there are several theories about where they came from. Some scholars believe the Dardanians were an offshoot of the Illyrians, who inhabited a larger portion of the Western Balkans. Others suggest they were influenced by the Thracians or the Paeonians, with whom they shared geographical proximity. The Dardanians were one of the most prominent and significant groups in the ancient Balkan region, especially during the early periods of recorded history. Their name, Dardania, has been linked to the mythical figure of Dardanus, the legendary founder of the city of Troy. This connection to the Trojan myths is significant because it highlights the Dardanians' role in the cultural and military history of the region. As a tribe, they were both highly skilled in warfare and agricultural practices, which allowed them to thrive in the rugged and mountainous terrain that was their homeland. The Dardanian people were not isolated, but rather were part of a larger cultural network of ancient tribes. Throughout the centuries, they engaged in trade, diplomacy, and warfare with their neighbors, including the Illyrians, Thracians, and Macedonians. Their interactions with these tribes and kingdoms were instrumental in shaping the early history of the region. The Dardanians were also known to have established a form of governance that was centered around tribal leaders and councils, which was a common feature in many ancient societies. The exact time frame of the Dardanian rise to prominence is debated by historians, but it is generally agreed that the Dardanians became a recognized and influential force by the 4th century BCE. They were first mentioned in historical records by Greek historians, who described the Dardanians as a strong and independent people. As the Dardanian tribe expanded, they began to assert control over the territory that would eventually become known as the Kingdom of Dardania, a powerful kingdom that would rival some of the great empires of the time. The early history of the Dardanian kingdom is marked by territorial expansion and military prowess. As the Dardanians began to solidify their identity and political structure, they started to expand their reach beyond their initial homeland in the Central Balkans. The Kingdom of Dardania's strategic location, situated between the Illyrians to the west and the Thracians to the east, allowed them to control important trade routes and maintained a position of power in the region. One of the most important factors in the Dardanian kingdom's expansion was its military strength. The Dardanians were known for their skilled warriors who fought primarily with spears, swords, and shields, and were well versed in the art of mounted combat. Their cavalry was especially renowned, and the Dardanians made use of the rugged terrain of the Balkan mountains to gain the upper hand in battle. They were able to field large armies and often employed guerrilla tactics that gave them an advantage over larger, more centralized forces. The Dardanian kingdom's expansion was not just about military conquest. The Dardanians were adept diplomats and sought to create alliances with neighboring tribes and kingdoms to solidify their power. Through strategic marriages, trade agreements, and military pacts, the Dardanians were able to build a network of alliances that helped to protect their interests and expand their territory. They were particularly successful in their dealings with the Thracians and Macedonians, who were often their rivals, but also potential allies. In the 4th century BCE, the Dardanian kingdom reached its height, controlling a vast territory that included parts of modern-day Kosovo, Montenegro, Albania, and North Macedonia. During this time, the Dardanians established their capital in a region that would later be known as the Dardanian Plain. This was a fertile area with access to vital trade routes and waterways, which allowed the Dardanians to prosper economically. The Kingdom of Dardania was a vibrant, thriving state that played an influential role in the political landscape of the ancient Balkans. The Dardanian Warriors were a crucial part of the kingdom's military success and played a significant role in the kingdom's territorial expansion. Known for their ferocity and tactical ingenuity, the Dardanian soldiers were well prepared for the challenges of warfare in the rugged terrain of the Balkans. The soldiers of Dardania were skilled in a variety of combat techniques, from hand-to-hand fighting to mounted warfare. They were especially adept at using the landscape to their advantage, employing ambushes and guerrilla tactics that were difficult for their enemies to counter. The Dardanian army was organized into several units, with different groups specializing in various forms of combat. The core of the Dardanian military was made up of heavily armed infantry, including spearmen and swordsmen, who formed the backbone of the army. These warriors were known for their discipline and ability to fight in tight formations, which made them effective in both defensive and offensive engagements. They also employed light infantry, who were fast and agile, to flank the enemy and disrupt their formations. One of the most notable features of the Dardanian military was their use of cavalry. The Dardanian cavalry was highly skilled in mounted combat and played a pivotal role in the kingdom's military victories. These cavalry units were equipped with fast horses, which allowed them to maneuver quickly in battle. The cavalry would often charge at the enemy's flanks, causing confusion and disarray among their ranks. The Dardanians also employed archers, who were trained in long-range attacks, and their use of bows and arrows was a key component of their military strategy. The Dardanian warriors were not just skilled in traditional warfare, but also in siege tactics. The Dardanians were known for their ability to besiege fortified cities, using advanced techniques to breach walls and fortifications. They employed siege weapons like battering rams, and their engineers were proficient in creating defensive structures and fortifications. The combination of well-trained infantry, mounted cavalry, and siege experts made the Dardanians a formidable force in the ancient world, capable of taking on much larger empires and armies. The kings of Dardania were central figures in the kingdom's rise to power and in its military and political success. The monarchy in Dardania was not a hereditary institution in the way that other kingdoms may have been, but rather a system where powerful tribal leaders or military commanders were chosen to lead. The Dardanian kings were typically selected from among the warrior elites, and their role was not only to lead in battle, but also to serve as protectors of the people and mediators in times of peace. One of the most notable early kings of Dardania was King Bardilus, who reigned during the 4th century BCE. Bardilus is remembered for his military exploits, particularly his victory over the Macedonian army. His success in battle allowed him to expand Dardanian's borders and increase its influence in the Balkans. Bardilus is also credited with forging important alliances with neighboring tribes, securing his kingdom's position as one of the most powerful in the region. Another key figure in Dardanian history was King Clitus, who reigned after Bardilus. While not as well known for his military conquests, Clitus was instrumental in consolidating Dardania's power and ensuring the kingdom's survival in a volatile political environment. Clitus is remembered for his diplomatic efforts, negotiating peace and stability in the region while preserving Dardania's independence. Under his leadership, Dardania experienced a period of relative peace and prosperity. The legacy of the Dardanian kings can still be felt in the region today. While their kingdom was eventually absorbed into the Roman Empire, the cultural and political contributions of the Dardanian monarchs left a lasting mark on the history of the Balkans. The military tactics, governance systems, and diplomatic strategies employed by the Dardanian kings were adopted by many of the surrounding tribes and kingdoms, ensuring that their influence extended far beyond their time. The Dardanian monarchy, though short-lived, played a key role in the development of the ancient Balkan world. The Dardanian kingdom's history is closely intertwined with the history of its neighbor, the Kingdom of Macedon. Throughout the 4th and 3rd centuries BCE, the Dardanians and Macedonians frequently found themselves at odds. The two kingdoms were in direct competition for control over the strategic and fertile lands of the Balkans, especially in regions like Illyria and Paeonia, where resources such as gold, timber, and agricultural goods were abundant. The rivalry between the Dardanians and the Macedonians is perhaps most famously illustrated in the wars fought between the Dardanian king Bardilus and the Macedonian rulers. In the early 4th century BCE, King Bardillus of Dardania waged a series of successful campaigns against the Macedonians. He was able to expand the territory of Dardania and disrupt Macedonian control over several important regions. Bardilius's forces achieved a significant victory over the Macedonian king, Alexander II, at the Battle of Liginus. The Macedonian defeat was a critical blow to the kingdom, and it marked a turning point in the power dynamics of the region. The Dardanians had proven that they were a formidable force that could stand up to even the most powerful military state of the time. Following this victory, Bardillus expanded his kingdom's territory into the northern Macedonian regions, while also consolidating power over neighboring Illyrian tribes. This success gave the Dardanian kingdom the momentum to assert dominance over the broader Balkans. The Dardanians' advantage was in their knowledge of the difficult terrain, which allowed them to utilize guerrilla tactics, ambushes, and rapid strikes. Their ability to exploit the geography of the land made them difficult for the Macedonians, who favored a more traditional phalanx-based style of warfare, to combat effectively. However, the Macedonians were not quick to surrender. King Philip II of Macedon, father of the famous Alexander the Great, sought to reclaim the lands lost to the Dardanians. In response to Dardania's growing power, Philip waged several military campaigns against the Dardanians. The Macedonian king's reforms and innovations in military strategy, including the development of the Macedonian phalanx, allowed him to eventually recapture the territories lost by his predecessors. Despite this, the Dardanians would remain a constant threat to Macedonian dominance for years to come, and the rivalry between the two kingdoms would shape the history of the Balkans for generations. While the Dardanians were distinct from the Illyrians, their influence on the surrounding Illyrian tribes cannot be overstated. As one of the most powerful kingdoms in the region, Dardania exerted considerable political, military, and cultural influence over its neighbors. Many of the smaller Illyrian tribes looked to the Dardanians for leadership and protection, especially in the face of Macedonian and Roman expansion. The Illyrians were a collection of tribes that occupied the Western Balkans, and they shared many cultural similarities with the Dardanians, including language and religious practices. However, unlike the Dardanians, many Illyrian tribes were more decentralized and lacked the unity needed to create a powerful, cohesive state. This is where the Dardanian kingdom came into play. Under strong leadership, Dardania became a dominant force among the Illyrian tribes, and its political and military structure served as a model for many of the neighboring tribes. The Dardanian influence over the Illyrians was particularly evident in the areas of military organization and governance. The Dardanian military, with its sophisticated tactics, well-trained warriors, and use of cavalry, served as a model for many Illyrian tribes. In times of conflict, the Dardanians often led coalitions of Illyrian tribes against common enemies, including the Macedonians and later the Romans. This cooperation between the Dardanians and Illyrians helped to unite the tribes of the Western Balkans in defense of their lands and way of life. Moreover, the Dardanians played a key role in the cultural exchange between the Illyrians and other ancient civilizations. As one of the leading powers in the region, Dardania had extensive trade networks with Greece, Macedonia, and the Thracians. This exposure to other cultures led to the exchange of ideas, technology, and art between the Dardanians and their Illyrian neighbors. The Dardanian influence helped to shape the identity of the Illyrians, making them more militarily and politically unified, even if the Dardanian kingdom itself was eventually absorbed into the expanding powers of the Romans and Macedonians. By the end of the 3rd century BCE, the Dardanian kingdom began to experience significant internal and external challenges that led to its eventual decline. The rise of the Roman Republic posed the most immediate threat, as the Romans, driven by their desire to expand their empire into the Balkans, set their sights on Dardania. The Dardanians found themselves caught between two powerful forces, the Romans to the south and the Macedonians to the east. While the Dardanians had successfully fought off the Macedonians in the past, they were no match for the Roman military machine, which was more organized and technologically advanced. The Romans, led by generals such as Gaius Flaminius, began to conquer and incorporate the regions of Illyria and Dardania into their growing empire. Over time, Roman military campaigns gradually chipped away at the Dardanian kingdom's borders. The final blow to Dardania came when the Romans defeated the last Dardanian kings and absorbed the kingdom into their empire during the late 1st century BCE. The Dardanians, like many other ancient civilizations, were gradually assimilated into the Roman world. Despite the decline of the Dardanian kingdom, the legacy of the Dardanians lived on in the territories they once ruled. The Dardanians were absorbed into the broader Roman Empire, and their culture, military traditions, and governance systems influenced the development of Roman provincial society. Elements of Dardanian culture, such as their art, religious practices, and military tactics, were integrated into Roman life and spread throughout the empire. The Dardanian language, while eventually replaced by Latin, left traces in the regional dialects spoken in the Balkans, particularly in the areas that had once been part of the Dardanian kingdom. Although the Dardanian kingdom no longer existed as a political entity, its influence continued to resonate in the region long after its fall. The Dardanians, with their unique combination of warrior culture, political organization, and trade networks, played a pivotal role in shaping the history of the Balkans and the wider ancient world. The legacy of the Dardanians continues to be felt in the modern Balkans, where their cultural, military, and political contributions have left a lasting impact. Though the kingdom itself no longer exists, the identity of the Dardanians lives on in the people and cultures of the region. Modern-day Kosovo, Albania, and North Macedonia, areas that were once part of the Dardanian kingdom, still retain many historical and cultural ties to their ancient past. Archaeological discoveries in the Balkans have shed light on the material culture of the Dardanians, including their pottery, weapons, and fortifications. These artifacts are a testament to the Dardanians' advanced civilization, which combined elements of both Illyrian and Thracian culture, as well as influences from Greek and Macedonian societies. Modern scholars continue to study these remnants to better understand the daily lives of the Dardanians and their contributions to the development of the region. In addition to their material legacy, the Dardanians have also left a cultural imprint on the modern peoples of the Balkans. Many of the traditions and customs of the ancient Dardanians are still observed in the folk practices, music, and dances of the people in Kosovo, Albania, and parts of Macedonia. The warrior ethos of the Dardanians, their deep respect for family and tribe, and their resilience in the face of foreign invaders are all values that continue to resonate with the people of the region today. The story of the Dardanians serves as a reminder of the rich and diverse history of the Balkans. As one of the key civilizations of the ancient world, the Dardanians played a critical role in shaping the history and culture of the region. Their contributions to military strategy, governance, and trade have left an indelible mark, and their legacy continues to inspire the people of the Balkans to this day.